I've been trying out various gacha games over the last several months. I've done a video on one already, I'm playing a couple right now, plus there's a few I still want to give a go. One I've been playing for a bit now is a very popular game in the genre, and that is Nikke. Obviously, I've been aware of this game for quite a while, as if I wouldn't know of a game that puts so much importance and emphasis on butt physics. But is it any good, and is it any fun to play without spending any money on it? That's what I want to know. First thing I want to know is if the foundation of the game is any good. Then I don't mind spending a few dollars every now and then. I'm sure many of you know what this game is about, but if you don't, Goddess of Victory Nikke is a third-person shooter gacha game. Like many of these types of games, there's Android, iOS, and PC ports. To be honest, one of my requirements is that there is a PC port. If there wasn't, I probably wouldn't be playing it. Though if there's any exception, then it probably would be Nikke because it plays so well on a mobile device. This game fits neatly into the post-apocalyptic sci-fi genre in terms of setting. This seems to be very common these days. Mechanical creatures called raptors invade Earth and drive humanity close to extinction. With the humans driven from the surface, they end up building a huge underground base called the Ark, which is the opposite of what happened with things in Astral Chain, or it's a massive floating island, but anyways, that's also called the Ark actually. Humanity is trying to actively reclaim the surface with the use of Nikkes. Nikkes are female soldiers with machine bodies. They're vastly stronger than regular humans. The main character, which is us the player, is a young male commander who, despite not having much experience, seems to excel and achieve success despite the odds being against him. Eventually, you'll be the commander of a squad called Counters, which consists of Nikkes, Rapi, Anis, and Neon. And while numerous other characters will come up in the story, these three are the main ones. Rapi is at first a seemingly emotionless, intelligent, and observant kind of person, though she does have a softer and emotional side to her. It's just that she doesn't really broadcast those traits normally. Anis is boisterous and straight to the point, but she's quite cynical in terms of her worldview. Despite that, she does try her best to enjoy the life that she has. Neon is probably the silliest character of the bunch. She's obsessed over firepower, and that does lead to some questionable decision-making. Her antics often result in a bickering match between her and Anis. And that's also the source of a lot of the comedy in the story. Speaking of the story, it is an interesting mixture between comedy and serious moments. The game world itself is pretty grim. Humanity is on the verge of extinction, and they're driven underground. The more you dive into the world, the more hidden darkness you find. Just the fact that Nikkes themselves are created by transplanting women's brains into robotic bodies is already a pretty dark concept, if you ask me. Combine that with the fact that Nikkes don't have human rights, and you get a world with a lot of socio-political and morally questionable issues. But that also makes the game world very interesting, and I'm enjoying seeing how the commander and the Nikkes close to him navigate that world. Especially as the commander is of the opinion that Nikkes should enjoy the same freedoms as humans, which as a concept is illegal by the government in the world there. Plus there's that entire war against raptors, remember that? So yeah, there's a lot going on. In that way it makes it feel realistic because there's all these different factions and groups and various opinions and what have you. And just like us in the real world, they in their world try to navigate through it and do the best they can. The fan service is very evident in the variety of character types, character designs, animations, and also the dating sim elements, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And also just some of the character interactions in general in the story too. Since the fan service is one of the main aspects of the game, it is very well done, as it should be, if it's so prominent. Nikke definitely falls into the high-effort fan service category. The developers clearly care a lot about it, and that shows in a number of obvious and also more nuanced ways. The way gameplay works in general is pretty easy to get a hang of. You have a squad of 5 Nikkes. You can also have several squad presets, which is nice. Battles are done in real time. Your squad is sitting behind cover on one end, while the enemy populates the scenery in front of you. Aiming is done via the mouse on the computer and with the finger on phones and tablets. By default, you control the unit in the middle, though you can switch which one you control on the fly. Raptors all have the same very obvious weak spots, which is their core. So the game actually does auto-aim towards the core if you're close enough. Presumably this is done to make things less frustrating on the mobile side of things. That can be turned off if I remember correctly. Sometimes scenery can get in the way. Even though it's destroyable, it's still a bit of a hassle. Like you'll see the raptor's behind something, but the auto aim goes towards the core, but you can't shoot because the target is technically obscured. So in some missions that can happen in maybe, critical moments, so you might want to turn that feature off if it's really hindering you. Raptors show up in waves, with the boss showing up at the very end. There's a progress bar at the top which shows you how much you've got to go before the boss appears. When the boss does appear, all you have to do is kill it in order to win the mission. It doesn't matter if you don't kill the other lesser ones. That's the most common mission type. There's also a zone-based mission type where a meter can go towards you or the raptor's favor. The aim here is to keep the enemies out of that zone. There's also a castle defense type sort of deal where you can only let so many enemies through before the mission ends, and they all go from left to right. You can win if you keep enough enemies out when the timer runs out. There is no boss here. Eventually you'll notice that there is a pattern that repeats, and you usually have to kind of balance your efforts between numerous cannon fodder rapture and singular ones that take some time to kill. Of course, there's just straight up boss fights too. These can be pretty unique depending who and what you're fighting in the story mode. There's weak spots that show up and disappear, and you better hit those circles when they show up, or you can get hit by a big attack. Like with any boss fight, you'll discover the patterns as you play, and they all have like their own unique patterns and quirks going on. As you can probably imagine, you lose if all of your squad is killed or the timer runs out. There's a lot of different raptors. Some fly, others are on the ground. They'll have all kinds of different attacks. Some shoot a lot of relatively harmless projectiles. Others charge up powerful shots, while others provide effects like they can heal other raptors, for example. There's some really annoying ones like the suicide bomber ones, which often show up in groups and insta-kill your squad. There's also another one that has a massive shield, which wouldn't be such a big deal, but often they end up shielding groups of those kamikaze raptors that I mentioned earlier. There's also some that can immobilize your Nikke, and an extra annoying one is the one that only takes 1 HP damage per shot, but that can, but it also heals, so yeah, fun times when you meet those. Raptors can show up in 3 different distance zones. You get a preview of what percentage of the enemies will show up where, so you can kind of prepare yourself. Depending on the weaponry, certain units are effective or ineffective against certain raptors, and also certain distances. For the most part, it's pretty logical. Snipers are good for annoying faraway enemies. Shotguns are good for groups of close-up enemies. Bazookas are also good against groups, for example, but, not just up close, obviously. You figure it out pretty quick. Plus, you can do some trial and error or read guides online. Your Nikkes also have abilities which are called burst. You can see that meter fill up as you're getting hits in and killing enemies. There's 3 stages of burst. That's what the Roman numerals stand for on your unit icons. Once the meter fills up, you can activate burst. If you have the wrong units, then sometimes it doesn't work at all. There's also the case if some of your Nikke fall mid-battle, you'll often find yourself not being able to activate burst in those situations, which just accelerates your downfall. With a bit of trial and error, you can usually find some decent burst combinations. Some early footage of me playing this game reveals I really didn't know how to use burst at all, and sometimes I just let it go to waste. And yeah, that's some painful footage to watch, because I know better now. But that's because at first the game is actually really easy. In fact, it's surprising how quickly you just breeze through missions. I actually found myself thinking, okay, it would be nice if it would be a little bit more challenging, because the battles are fun and I want to play a bit more and not just go and done. But then, several chapters into the story, and suddenly you'll hit a wall. Instead of breezing through missions, you'll have to explore all the various mechanics of making your Nikke stronger and getting the items you require. Leveling up is the most obvious way of making your character stronger. It doesn't happen automatically. In fact, you have to manually do it, and you better do it correctly. The basics are simple enough though. You spend credits and battle data, aka money and experience. Naturally, leveling up costs increase each level. Occasionally, you'll need core dust as well, which at times can take a little while to accrue. That's one of the first times you'll probably be tempted to spend money, because sometimes it's just like, whoa, I need so much of this and I have like none of it. Before getting too into it, the game will introduce you to the synchro device in the outpost. So basically, you put in 5 Nikkes on top, and every Nikke you add below will sync their levels with the lowest level top one. That way, you only need to spend 5 Nikkes worth of leveling materials. Just make sure the Nikkes All other Nikkes sync to are SSR tier. That's the highest. Other than just being stronger, they also have a higher level cap than SR and below. And that's kind of the point. This way, SR and below Nikkes can go over that level cap if they're synced. So that's why you don't want to get it the other way around. In order to get SSR Nikkes, you'll need to pull for them. Recruiting is the euphemism they used for the gambling part of the game. There's actually a few ways to pay. There's gems, that's the main one, and you can thankfully earn it in various ways. You can also use tickets, which are a little bit more rare. They come from certain milestone events or through limited time events, that sort of thing. I haven't spent a penny yet, and I was able to amass quite a few SSR Nikkes in only a couple of months. Getting duplicates allows you to limit break Nikkes, which obviously makes them stronger and also raises their level cap. SR only allows for one limit break, while with SSR it's two. You can also buy spare bodies for this sort of thing from various in-game stores that take various in-game currencies. So buying a spare body has the same effect as just getting a duplicate character. It's not the fastest way to do things, but, you know, I still recommend saving up and then just watching the stores because inventory regularly refreshes. There's also class and manufacturer upgrades, which is exactly what it sounds like. So you can upgrade the classes or all the Nikkes from certain manufacturers. Equipment can also be upgraded. There's an auto-equip function, which is nice for someone like me who doesn't like to fumble with that stuff too much. Also, you can upgrade attacks and bursts and things like that of each individual Nikke. Now's probably a good time to bring up Outpost Defense. Basically, it's a passive thing that accumulates materials over time. You can use those to upgrade and all that stuff. As you progress with the game, you'll get more materials per hour. I'm only casually mentioning it because there's not that much to say, but it is actually very important. So yeah, check it every day. There's also life sim and dating sim elements to the game. Raise affection for each girl and they will become stronger in battle, like their stats will increase. You also get to know more about them as you unlock event cutscenes, which is nice. Plus you also earn gems for watching said events. I'm not going to go through every function, but there's a lot to do. Like the simulation room to get experience, various towers that get more difficult each floor that give you some nice rewards. Then there is interception, which is like various boss fighty things, and you get gear in return. And then there's the arena, which is a PvP kind of thing. You gain currency for the arena store, which allows you to buy stuff. Plus, you also get to hear Mustang shout the announcements, and it has some really awesome background music too. The Lost Sector is also a good way to play some slightly more puzzle-oriented missions, while also gaining and upgrading harmony cubes, which are equipable things that make your character stronger. Not sure how they exactly work. I just use a guide that tells me which cubes go well with which character, basically. Currently, I'm at a point where I have to limit break my SSR Nikkes to go above level 160. That'll probably take a while, and in the meantime, I just have to upgrade every little thing I can here and there until I can finally get over that hump. Right now, I'm not gonna say completely stuck, but very stuck on some story missions there, and even those level 200 Nikkes that the game allows you to use 3 times a day aren't enough. For a change of pace, let's talk about graphics now. Nikke looks very good, though it does have some mobile wonkiness, I guess you could say, among other things. The graphics are a mixture of 2D and 3D elements. The characters are presented in live 2D or something like that anyways. The character animations are excellent. It's the highlight of the game. Whether we're talking about battle animations or even just the animations that happen when you click on them in the menus. Some are simple while others can be a bit more elaborate. It really shows off the characters' personalities well with how uniquely they're all portrayed. It's clear that a very considerable amount of effort has gone into the visuals of the characters. In battles, the environments look like sprites that sit on a 3D space. It's pretty decent looking, but there's a bit of a perspective strangeness that occurs when moving the mouse around or when those zoom-ins and zoom-out things happen. There's also low resolution effects going on, which are specifically noticeable when you defeat a boss. The camera zooms in and the explosion effects are super pixelated. Other than that, I think the game looks pretty good. The menus are pretty decent looking too. Like most gacha games, there's so much stuff that it actually looks a bit overwhelming in the beginning. but it's actually well organized when you figure out kind of where everything is. Once you know the game's main locations, the outpost, arc, and the surface, you'll memorize where each of the gameplay functions are real quick. To summarize, basically, the outpost has Nikke and squad-related things. The arc has facilities that you can make use of, like the simulation room, the lost sector, and the arena, while the surface is basically where the fighting is done. Other miscellaneous functions are in the main menu. You can see that a lot of the game is meant to be played on a phone, so you get certain screens, menus, or cutscene animations, and several visual elements that look a bit out of place on a PC. I mean, you can see that they're supposed to be in landscape, so you just have empty space on the left and right, basically. That being said, you can do battles on mobile in landscape mode. There's like a toggle, so that's nice. But you know, these screen orientation issues can be excused. The game has to be playable in both ways, and you know, it doesn't detract too much from the actual experience. Let's talk about sound. There's English, Korean, and Japanese voiceovers. I like Japanese. There's a lot of recognizable voice actors, which are fun to stumble upon. I think the sounds are well done in battles. There's different sounds for different weapons, even character-specific ones. I'll admit to using Celine pretty much always, since her gun is just... yeah, it has a very satisfying noise. I do find it interesting that you actually can't hear the other units shooting during gameplay. Like, you can hear them talk and stuff, but you only hear the weapons from the unit you're currently controlling. And you'd think that guns would be louder than talking. Maybe they could have done something a bit better there. The music is very good. I really like the mix of music. There's a lot of metal and electronic music. Now, those are some broad genres themselves, but basically all kinds of other genres are represented as well to fit whatever situation may be occurring in the story or what have you. You can also just listen to the music in-game as well, which is, I think that's fun to do. Just the variety is really great. There's several events that'll occur, and what I mean by that is specifically limited time events with characters and storylines. Sometimes they expand on the game's lore, while other times it can be a collaboration with other franchises and series. Usually events will feature new characters, outfits, and storylines to play through. There's also season pass things and daily check-in quests that allow you to get gems or recruitment tickets and things like that. Usually events will have parts to them like a harder difficulty level, for example, that will unlock at a later time. So that way it stops people from zooming through everything in one sitting because, let's be honest, this type of game attracts those kind of people. When it comes to the gacha stuff, I'd say the game is forgiving enough that you don't need to pay to have a lot of fun. Usually the grinding is still fun enough, but there's certain things like outfits that can only be obtained through purchase. A good example is the mission pass. You can complete quests to go through the different tiers there, but if you don't pay, you only get the rewards from the peasant column on the left, not the good stuff on the right. For the last 3 months or however long I've played the game, I've held off, but if a really nice outfit comes along from a character that I like, I may be swayed. Another way the developers try to get your money is by making outfits event exclusives, so it makes you feel like you have to buy the pass now or else you'll have lost your chance. Or, the other way is to create an artificial wall at level 160 where you have to limit break 5 Nikke several times so you can level up to 200. But anyways, overall, despite what I just said there, I really like Goddess of Victory Nikke. I think it has some top-notch fan service, which, well, I mean, for me that's important. The gameplay is pretty fun, and it's also nice that it works so well on a touchscreen, so, occasionally I will boot it up on a phone and just play a little bit. The storyline is very enjoyable to follow, and it does make you want to keep playing, even when that sudden difficulty wall comes up. I also like how the story can so effortlessly go from serious to silly and back again. It's kind of tough to figure out that formula, but they managed that here somehow. I like the care they took to make sure that the fan service is excellent. The variety of characters is commendable. They're not afraid of just going for one type of character type, All kinds of body types are represented. It's also nice that we get little cutscenes and storylines with them, so it feels like you get to know them better. Overall, it's a very well done game. I've been enjoying it for several months. Let me know what you think of the game if you've played it. I'm sure many of you have, since a lot of people mentioned this game in the comment section of the Zenless Zone Zero video I did. And also remember, you can support the channel through Patreon or YouTube channel memberships if you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.